"You won't fight me on this?" she asked, tilting her head like I was supposed to beg. She had already packed a bag. Her car keys were dangling from her finger like it was some kind of power move. On the kitchen island sat a manila envelope, thick with papers that still smelled like printer ink. I didn't answer right away. Instead, I picked up the envelope, calmly pulled out the first page, and read it, line by line. I could hear her sighing dramatically, impatient like always. Her phone buzzed twice. She didn't look at it, but she wanted to. I knew. Then I took a photo of the divorce packet and put it back on the counter. Her expression twitched. "What are you doing?" she snapped, making sure I remember what betrayal looks like on paper. Her face changed for a split second. Something between guilt and fear, gone in a flash, masked by arrogance again. She didn't expect me to say anything clever. I usually didn't. I usually just swallowed pain and nodded. But this time I was numb. She tapped her nails on the granite and said, "I think this is best. For both of us. You'll see." She left with no hug, no tears, no last look at the life she just detonated. The silence in the house afterward wasn't peaceful, it was surgical. Like every photo of us had already been erased in her mind, and she was waiting for me to catch up. I didn't sleep that night. I laid in our bed. Well, my bed now, listening to nothing and everything. Her laugh still echoed in the walls. Her favorite candle still sat half-burned on the nightstand. I didn't move it, but I did check our shared cloud storage. And that's when I saw the video. A 41-second clip, uploaded accidentally. Probably meant for someone else, definitely not for me. It was her. In a hotel room I didn't recognize. She was laughing in someone else's hoodie. And then he walked into frame. Shirtless, with his hand around her waist like he'd owned her for years. I watched it 3 times. And then I smiled. Not because I was okay. I wasn't. But because that's the moment I stopped being the guy she thought she could discard without consequences. 3 days later, she texted me at 2:19 a.m. "Are you awake? I feel like I made a huge mistake." I didn't reply. Not then. Because by the time she realized what she lost, I was already in motion. And she had no idea what was coming. I didn't answer her message right away. In fact, I stared at that glowing screen for almost an hour, watching the typing bubbles appear, vanish, reappear, like she was choking on her own regret. That same woman who tossed our life away like a grocery receipt was now reaching out in the dark, hoping I'd be foolish enough to still be her safety net. I wasn't. By then, I had already done things she didn't expect from me. The video she accidentally uploaded, the one where she giggled with some half-dressed gym rat in a cheap hotel suite, wasn't just burned into my mind. It was archived, backed up, and quietly forwarded to an account she didn't know I still had access to. I wasn't planning revenge. Not exactly. I just wanted truth to exist somewhere other than inside my broken chest. The day after she moved out, I visited a lawyer. Not the one she used. Mine was smarter, sharper, and didn't believe in losing quietly. He told me something that cracked everything open. She hadn't just filed for divorce. She tried to list her new address under privacy protections, typically reserved for abuse victims. She was painting herself as scared of me. Me, the guy who once cried watching a Pixar movie on her lap. That explained why she hadn't said goodbye, why she never looked back when she walked out. She wasn't just leaving, she was framing me. And that made the 2:19 a.m. message even more pathetic. Because if I was really that bad, why reach out now? Why, after deleting me from her life, was she begging to reopen the door? A few hours later, at 6:03 in the morning, my phone buzzed again. This time it was a call. I didn't answer. Then another. Then another. Voicemail. I let them pile up, one after the other, until my inbox was full of fragments of her unraveling. I finally played one on speaker as I brewed coffee. "Elwood, please just talk to me." I was confused. I was told things, but they weren't true. "It's not what you think. Please call me. Please." The irony? She was right. It wasn't what I thought. It was so much worse. Because my lawyer had found something else. That hotel she stayed at? Not a random getaway. It was a block away from a condo that belonged to the man in the video. Asher Lowell. I knew the name now. He wasn't just some guy from the gym. He was her coworker. He was married, and their affair had been going on for 7 months. Weekly meetups, business trips that weren't business, a second phone. She had planned everything, even the breakup breakfast with me, around one thing: making herself look like the victim. I wasn't supposed to find the video. I wasn't supposed to go digging. I was supposed to sit in silence, cry, and fade away while she rebuilt her life with a better, sexier, richer man. But here's the thing she forgot. I'm not disposable, and I don't fade quietly. So while she kept texting me, panicking, I was sitting with her boss in a quiet cafe, showing him a clip from the cloud that had a very familiar office name badge in the background. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't threaten anyone. I just let him watch. And when the screen went black, I said one thing. She said, "This wasn't what I think. I want to hear what you think." He looked like he swallowed a brick. Because actions have consequences. And she was about to learn just how far-reaching hers would be. The silence after the video ended was heavier than I expected. Her boss just sat there, staring at the dark screen, his fingers twitching near his coffee cup like he wanted to pick it up, but couldn't quite justify the motion. I watched his throat bob as he swallowed and finally asked, "When was this taken?" His voice was quieter now, less executive, more human. I gave him the date and time, both stamped in the file's metadata. Then I told him where it was taken. He recognized the hotel name instantly. I could see it in his eyes. I didn't need to say more. He knew. Geneva wasn't just cheating with a coworker. She was cheating with a direct subordinate, inside the web of the company's strict no fraternization policy, which, by the way, she helped draft 2 years ago when she got promoted. The irony was almost poetic. He leaned back and rubbed his temples. "Do you want me to fire her?" he asked, trying to read me. "Is that what this is?" I didn't answer directly. I wasn't there for revenge. Not in the way people assume. I just wanted the truth to exist outside of my pain. I wanted her to face consequences. Not because I hated her, but because she tried to destroy me and walk away clean. I said, "Do what your policies require. I'm not your HR rep." He nodded slowly. That was enough. As I walked out of the cafe, her boss still sitting in stunned silence, I felt something I hadn't felt in weeks. Stillness. Not happiness, not victory. Just stillness. The kind that comes when you stop trying to fix something that's been broken for far too long. That same afternoon, Geneva called again. 8 times. Then came the text that nearly made me laugh out loud. "Did you do something? I just got an email from HR. Please tell me this wasn't you." No hi. No how are you, no apology. Just immediate paranoia. That's when I realized something wild. She was finally afraid of me. The man she once viewed as soft, forgettable, invisible, was now unpredictable. And she hated it. But I still didn't reply, because I had one more place to visit. Asher's wife. Yeah, I'd found her too. Took a little digging, but there she was. Her name was Mallory, and she worked as a nurse 2 cities over. I drove there after work, parked across the street from the clinic, and waited until she came out in scrubs, tired, holding a lunch bag that probably hadn't been opened. She looked kind, real, the type of woman who probably put up with excuses for years. When I approached her, I introduced myself by name. Her eyes narrowed with cautious confusion. I said only this. "Your husband's been seeing my wife. I have proof. I don't want anything from you, but I thought you deserved to know." I handed her a sealed envelope with the printed screenshots and the hotel video stills. Nothing vulgar, nothing obscene, just the truth. Just enough for her to decide what she wanted to do with her own life. She didn't cry. She didn't scream. She simply nodded and whispered, "Thank you," before walking away without another word. That evening, Geneva showed up at my apartment. I didn't let her in. She stood on the doorstep, wrapped in that same beige coat she wore the day she left, makeup slightly smudged, looking nothing like the woman who'd once tossed divorce papers across our counter like a joke. She was shaking, not from cold, from fear. "Elwood," she whispered through the door. "Please, you don't understand what's happening. Everything's falling apart. I need to talk to you. Please." I didn't speak. I just stood behind the door and listened. And when she realized I wasn't going to open it, she broke down crying, right there in the hallway. Loud, messy sobs that echoed through the walls. The same woman who once walked away without a tear was now collapsing at my doorstep like the roles had reversed. But it wasn't revenge. It was balance. And I wasn't even close to done. I didn't open the door. I didn't even lean close enough for her to hear me breathe. I just stood in the silence of my apartment while her sobs echoed through the hallway. You'd think part of me would have cracked. Maybe that old part of me who once stayed up all night massaging her temples through migraines, or drove an hour to find the almond butter she liked. But that version of me had been quietly buried under every lie she told, and every time she shared her body with someone else while pretending our home was still sacred. Eventually, the crying stopped. I waited another 2 minutes before peeking through the peephole. She was gone, or so I thought. It wasn't until the next morning that I realized she had left something behind. My phone buzzed at 8:12 a.m. with a message from my building manager. "Hey, just a heads up, your ex was here last night." I had to ask her to leave. She was trying to get the night guard to let her in. She said she lived here. "You might want to change your code." She was that desperate, lying to strangers, clawing her way back into a place she no longer belonged. But worse, she wasn't done. That same morning, an email hit my inbox from Geneva's lawyer. Not mine, hers. It was cold and sterile, full of legal jargon, but the meaning behind it was clear. She wanted to discuss adjustments to the terms of the divorce. She wanted more. A reversal. She wasn't begging for me back because of love. She was afraid I was taking control, and she hated not being the one holding the cards. I sent the email to my lawyer with a single line: "We don't negotiate with liars." He called me within the hour, barely hiding his amusement. She knows she lost her leverage. Now she's flailing. Then he paused. "You still want to move forward with the motion we discussed?" "Yes," I said, every word of it. Because here's what Geneva never saw coming. The apartment we lived in, my name only. The joint savings, already frozen. The car she left behind because she was too busy playing house with Asher, already signed over and resold. Every asset she thought she could fall back on had already been legally disentangled, and she hadn't even noticed until she came back to grab the pieces. But there was one more thing. The part I'd kept quiet even from my lawyer until now. A week before she served me those divorce papers, I had started therapy. Not marriage counseling, personal therapy. And during one of those sessions, I told my therapist something I hadn't told anyone. I don't think she just left me for another man. I think she planned to wreck me first. Emotionally, financially, maybe even legally. It sounded paranoid. But now I had proof. And the fatal mistake she made last night, the real one, wasn't showing up at my door crying. It wasn't begging for attention or emailing lawyers or lying to the front desk. It was this. She left her second phone in the hallway. I don't know if it fell out of her code or if she dropped it during her little meltdown, but there it was, face down near the stairwell. No lock screen, just a cracked protector and a half-charged battery. And when I picked it up, the first thing that popped up was a message from a contact saved as Snake Brent HR. It read, "Did you delete the Dropbox link? He can't see that. If he finds it, we're screwed." I didn't even have to open it yet. I just stared at the screen and smiled. Because now, finally, I had everything. I didn't rush. I held that second phone like it was radioactive, set it down on my coffee table, and stared at it like it might blink or vanish if I looked away. That little message from Snake Brent HR was still up on the screen, the digital equivalent of a half-confession, and I already had a sinking feeling I hadn't seen the worst of it yet. Dropbox link. Hidden files. The way he said, "We're screwed," told me everything. It wasn't just a hotel video or some flirty screenshots this time. This was organized. Deliberate. I clicked. It opened instantly. No password, no two-factor code. She must have set it to auto-login for convenience. What I saw inside made my chest tighten. The folder was titled Documents FYI, and inside were over 30 files. PDFs, audio recordings, video clips. The first one I opened was a spreadsheet labeled Plan a Timeline. It read like a project roadmap. Bullet points. Color-coded milestones. January. Initiate distancing. Sleep schedule shift. Blame stress. February. Begin legal consultations. Use coworker stories as cover. March. Begin private separation of accounts. Sell crypto. April. Trigger confrontation. Plant narrative of emotional detachment. May. Exit. Serve with papers. Relocate. Cut contact. That was the exact timeline she'd followed. Down to the week. But it got worse. The next file was an audio recording. I recognized the voices immediately, Geneva and Brent. It was from a phone call, or maybe a voice memo, recorded late at night. Her voice was low, calm, calculating. "He's clueless. He's still folding my clothes like I'm coming back. When the papers hit, it's going to gut him." Brent laughed. "You're cold." Geneva. "No, I'm smart. If I time it right, I walk out clean and he still feels like it's his fault. He'll blame himself for years. And I'll be free." I paused the recording. My hands were shaking. It wasn't just betrayal. It was premeditated psychological sabotage. She hadn't left because she fell in love with someone else. She left to break me in a way that would leave no bruises, no proof, just echoes of shame and confusion. But now I had the proof. And suddenly, her crying outside my door, the voicemails, the late-night texts, they weren't guilt. They were panic. She had realized the monster she tried to create had stood up. I hadn't crumbled. I'd found my spine. And now she knew I had her secrets in my hands. I backed up the entire Dropbox to 3 different drives. I printed hard copies of the worst documents. I stored the recordings in secure cloud storage she'd never touch. And then I made an appointment. Not with my lawyer this time. With a journalist. Not a tabloid vulture. A real one. Local, sharp, already familiar with Brent's name because, oh yeah, he wasn't just some mid-level HR creep. He was part of the company's hiring committee and married to the VP of communications. You start messing with reputations at that level, the house of cards doesn't just shake. It crumbles. But I wasn't rushing this. I'd learned from her. Play the long game. Move in silence. Smile when they think you're broken. And then flip the table when they least expect it. Because Geneva was about to learn the real cost of treating someone's heart like a stepping stone. And she was going to pay it in public. I didn't expect much from the email I sent. Honestly, it felt like tossing a bottle into the ocean. I included the basics, a brief outline of what Geneva and Brent had done, a few key files, the audio recording, and that soul-curdling plan a spreadsheet. I didn't even ask for anything in return. I just said, if you care about accountability in corporate systems, you'll look into this. 3 days passed. I went to work. I cleaned my apartment. I ignored Geneva's increasingly frantic texts. I waited. Then, on a quiet Thursday morning, my phone lit up with a number I didn't recognize. I let it go to voicemail. Less than a minute later, I got a follow-up email from the same journalist I had written to call me. Urgently. So I did. She answered before the first ring finished and didn't waste time. Are you sitting down? That's how I knew something had escalated beyond what I imagined. She told me that after reviewing the documents, she did a little digging into Brent's background. What she found, Brent had been involved in 2 prior workplace departures that were hushed internally. Both involved women in junior positions. Both were swept under non-disclosure agreements. And now, he was involved in an affair with Geneva, who, by the way, had a pending promotion that had been quietly greenlit behind closed doors. The optics weren't just messy, they were explosive. And then she said the part that hit me like a freight train. This story is going to print in 3 days. I've already spoken with your legal rep. Your identity is protected unless you choose to come forward. I didn't know what to say. I'd started this whole thing in complete silence, just trying to survive the aftermath of being tossed aside like I didn't matter. Now I was holding the match that could burn through a very expensive wall of lies. I told her I needed time to think about going public. She respected that, but the story was happening, with or without my name attached. And that was just the beginning. Because the day after the article went live, Geneva called me 15 times in a row. When I didn't answer, she left a voicemail I'll never forget. Her voice was shaking. Not sad. Terrified. Elwood, I need to talk to you. They're suspending me. Brent's been removed from the system. My promotion's frozen. There's an internal investigation, and HR is saying there's evidence I don't even know what they have. Did you do this? Please call me back. I didn't. Because there was nothing left to say. She had built her entire escape plan on the belief that I'd stay broken, that I'd whimper, collapse, maybe even chase her for closure. But I'd done something else. I stayed quiet long enough for her to hand me the keys to her own undoing. And now the woman who once stared me down over a stack of divorce papers like a smug queen was watching her kingdom crack. But what Geneva didn't know yet, there was still one final card I hadn't played. And it wasn't about her job. It was about who else knew. Because while she was focused on her career collapsing, someone even closer to her was about to confront the truth. Someone whose opinion of her still mattered more than mine ever did. And I was the one who handed them the truth directly. I wasn't trying to be cruel. In fact, I debated it for days. But when I saw Geneva scrambling to fix her corporate image, calling in favors and trying to frame herself as the victim of a professional misunderstanding, I realized she hadn't changed, not even after everything crumbled around her. She still thought she could charm her way out, lie through a smile, and come out clean. That's when I sent the envelope. Not to her boss, not to the press, Not to the police. To her mother. Because Geneva and I weren't just married on paper. We'd spent holidays together, Sunday dinners, road trips where her mom rode shotgun while we argued about playlists. Her mom was the only person who ever pulled me aside and said, "I see how hard you try, Elwood. She doesn't always make it easy." There was warmth there, a kind of old-school decency that Geneva had long abandoned. So I printed the timeline file. I printed the audio transcript, the one where Geneva called me clueless and bragged about manipulating the breakup. I included stills from the video. Just enough. Not everything. Just enough for her mother to understand what I'd been dealing with and what her daughter had become. The envelope was anonymous. I didn't include my name, but she knew. It took less than 48 hours for the fallout to hit. Geneva showed up at my apartment again, not yelling this time, crying in a different way. Not the ugly, door-slapping sobs like before. This time she was quiet, pale, shaking like a child who realized the consequences weren't just public, they were personal. "She won't speak to me," she whispered through the door. "She said she doesn't know who I am anymore. She canceled our trip. Elwood, you didn't have to do that." I didn't reply, because she was wrong. I didn't have to. I had to make sure someone saw me, someone believed me. Because for months, I thought I was crazy. I thought I was the one who failed. And the entire time, Geneva was writing out her escape like a business pitch, mocking me in private calls, rewarding herself for each stage of emotional sabotage. Her mother had believed in us. She believed in me. And now, finally, someone close to Geneva was looking at her through my eyes. She stood outside for 15 minutes. Then she left. The next morning, I got a voicemail from her mother. I expected anger, maybe disappointment. But instead, I heard a soft, heartbreaking voice. "Elwood, I don't know what to say, but I believe you. And I'm sorry." That voicemail broke me more than Geneva's betrayal ever could. Because it meant I wasn't crazy. I wasn't overreacting. I wasn't the pathetic fool she made me out to be. I was just a man who loved the wrong person too hard for too long. But the story wasn't over yet. Because Geneva still had one more desperate move left. And it was the worst one yet. I should have seen it coming. Geneva never went down quietly. Not when we argued, not when she cheated, and not when her house of lies finally collapsed. But even after the article dropped, even after she lost her job, her affair blew up, and her own mother turned away, she still believed she had one last card to play. She filed a motion to reverse the divorce. Yes, you read that right. Through her lawyer, she claimed the initial separation was done under emotional duress, and she now wished to reconcile. On paper, it was framed as a plea for restoration. The marriage, her attorney argued, was worth saving. Geneva regrets her actions and believes with support and counseling, the bond can be repaired. In reality, it was a legal ploy. If she could reverse it, she might regain access to shared assets, perhaps even make a claim against the settlement she'd voluntarily waived. But she underestimated something, or rather, someone. Me. The man she thought would always say yes. The man she trained herself to emotionally manage like a pet. The man she tried to break on purpose. I showed up to court not in tears, not in shame, but with a quiet, solid composure she hadn't seen from me in years. I brought the receipts, the timeline, the audio transcripts. My lawyer presented everything she'd hoped would stay buried. And for the first time, Geneva sat in silence while her own words were read aloud, line by line, in front of strangers in suits and robes. She didn't cry. She didn't argue. She just shrank. The judge denied her motion without hesitation. And just like that, she was out of my life for good. No shared property, no rights to appeal, no more lies to spin. It was over. But here's the part one didn't expect, the part that makes this ending more than just revenge or justice. After it all, I didn't feel victorious. I felt light, like I had finally exhaled a breath I didn't know I'd been holding for years. I went home to a quiet apartment, my apartment, and opened the windows. I made dinner. I listened to music that didn't make me sad anymore. I watched the sunset without thinking of who wasn't sitting beside me. And a week later, something strange happened. I laughed. For real. Not the fake, polite kind you give coworkers. A full, ridiculous laugh at a video someone sent me. And in that moment, it hit me. I was healing. I wasn't just surviving her anymore. I was becoming me again. And a few months later, I met someone new. Not someone perfect, someone honest. And when I told her the whole story, She didn't flinch or pity me. She just listened and said, "You didn't deserve that. But you made it out. That means everything." And she was right. Because sometimes the best revenge is finally living without needing it.